The idea here, and I really appreciate the way you set this up, is to start thinking a little bit about that direction. As Jerry had pointed out, it is not uncommon. We've got to experience a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, ambiguity, but at minimum, getting a little bit more of that direction, that destination that we're going for, that can really help us get some direction here. As a matter of fact, one of the ways to start thinking about it is through this mental model, if you will, called the Strategicscope. I'm really excited to talk through this. This is probably one of the tools that we've developed that I really appreciate using. It came from the concept of looking at a telescope. As a matter of fact, as you do take a look at the telescope, you'll notice that at one end, you've got a smaller lens called the eyepiece. The small lens, this is what you look through, but the telescope itself starts to get larger and larger in terms of allowing you to see more. As a matter of fact, we'll call that being scoped out, if you will, as we'll talk through in just a second. So this is a good way to start thinking through how you might start approaching some of these strategic goals that you've got in mind. What is it that I am seeing? And how can I start thinking about scoping out that view? Perhaps to the team's view, the department's view or functional view, maybe even the company's view, and eventually out to an industry view. But here's how all of that works. It begins with a real simple question. And that is to get outside of ourselves a little bit by asking questions and perspectives from a different vantage point. As a matter of fact, start thinking to yourself about something that is currently going on with you. Maybe it's not uncommon. We tend to get a little within ourselves. Maybe we start to think a little bit about what's going on. What are the stressors in the organization, in the industry? Am I seeing a lot of movement, a lot of change? Am I seeing organizations downsizing? But what about AI, the introduction, and how that is starting to affect us? Well, we tend to get within our own thoughts, within ourselves on this. So start thinking a little bit broader and ask yourself, well, let me begin with what's the industry's view on this? As a matter of fact, as I start to think about a bigger picture perspective and forcing myself into that industry view, this is not necessarily to evaluate or judge right or wrong or what's going to be good or bad, but rather just trying to inform yourself. Just try and think about it from a bigger perspective. What is going on in the industry? What are some of the trends that I'm seeing? Then maybe even taking a look at the company's view on this. How's the company thinking about it? What type of communication am I getting from senior leadership about this? Where are strategic initiatives being directed? Where is capital being invested? This is going to start to tell me what is the company's view. Then I want to scope to perhaps the department's view or maybe a functional view. How does my department take a look at this? What's going on from a policy or procedure standpoint that's telling me that this is important to my function? Then coming down to a team view, what is it that your teammates are saying? What is it your colleagues, your peers are talking about? What are some of the stressors or perhaps the things that they're looking forward to in regards to it? And then lastly, finishing up with our own view, which is usually the view or the perspective we've got the most clarity around. So as you think through each of these perspectives, there's a couple of benefits, a couple of advantages. Number one, you do start to understand things from a different vantage point. Number two, this also starts to invoke a little bit of empathy as you start to take consideration around different perspectives on the same topic or the same area. And one of the items that we want to really be able to do then too is to take these and connect the dots. You want to be able to show a little bit of your logic, your thought process in order to help clarify really that thought on what I am doing and how that might impact things at a bigger picture level. As a matter of fact, to think about it just from an industry or a company view and then immediately go to our own view, it can sometimes shortchange our thinking. If, for example, well, the industry, the company, I do see a lot of investment that's going on in AI, but candidly, my view is I'm still a little scared, maybe a little trepidation in adopting it. The advantage of connecting the dots along the way, as you'll see here in a minute, provides a little bit more of a broader perspective and understanding of the topic. As a matter of fact, as you do start to think about connecting these dots, you can do it in one of two ways. You can either what we call scope up, or you can scope down. I'll give you a quick example. So let's say that my view is that AI can be really challenging. There's a lot of unknown, and candidly, I'm a little apprehensive about how it might affect my job. But if I pause for a second and I start to take a step back, try and think about this from a slightly bigger perspective, I might start to pay attention to what my team is saying about it, maybe what some of my colleagues or my peers are talking about. And candidly, I might even see some of that same fear that I feel, that I see. In addition, I also might see some efforts that others are making in order to become a little bit more acclimated to it. Once again, pause, take a step back, ask yourself from a departmental perspective, from a functional perspective, what am I seeing here in regards to AI? Well, they are talking about we've got to be more efficient. We are constantly getting the message that we've got to be able to do more with less. And we are seeing that AI is starting to influence some of our current processes and procedures. But once again, continue to scope that view out and maybe even think about it from a company perspective. Well, they have been talking about investing significant money, significant capital into AI development in order to help with a number of different areas, not just process and procedure, but also maybe with creativity, new product development. So at minimum, I am noticing that there is a desire to adopt more application of it. And then once again, scope out all the way to the industry perspective. What is going on in the industry in regards to this? Well, I am seeing other organizations adopt this. As a matter of fact, in the trades, we are seeing more and more examples where AI is influencing our organization, our industry as a whole. So at minimum, being able to scope up from my view all the way to the industry view can start to elevate my perspective, my point of view on it. In addition, I can also take a look at this in terms of scoping down, where maybe I start with that industry perspective. What are some of the industry goals, initiatives? What types of trends am I seeing there? Then moving into my company's view, where are they adopting some of those? Maybe where are they pushing back on some of those? What are some of the strategic initiatives that are going on that really start to emphasize what I'm seeing out in the industry? And then moving down to a functional or departmental perspective. Well, what is it that's going on in our area? How is HR or finance or marketing starting to take a look at this as well? What types of processes or messaging is coming out? Then going down into a team's perspective on it. So what are my teammates saying about this? How are they feeling about it? And then eventually to my own view on this. This is scoping down.